Gentleman yields. I now recognize Mr. Massie for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And thank you again, Mr. Krauter, for being here today. As we discuss how to fund airport infrastructure, I'd like to focus on the passenger facility charge and its $4.50 cap. It always amazes me, that was set in, what year was that set? When was the last adjustment to that?
2000.
So 2000, it's been a quarter of a century. There's been a little bit of inflation since then, just a smidge. And we have airlines charging $30, $40, $50 to check a bag. And the airport can only charge $4.50 to use the airport. It's kind of amazing to me when you put it in that perspective. I think you said there's $8.3 billion of baggage and claim fees, change fees, sorry. Yet the PFC is still stuck at $4.50. How does that cap impact your ability to fund critical infrastructure projects at CVG, or how did it affect it at Spokane when you worked there?
Thank you for the question, Representative Massie. I think that this is an answer that would apply really to all airports, which is that the current limit really acts as an artificial constraint in terms of particularly how you can pay for your projects either on a pay-as-you-go basis, which because of inflation, that $4.50 is really probably even less than half of what it was set at, being conservative. And that also then forces more airports to basically use the PFC as a debt service mechanism. And that means we've got to issue more debt, and that means we have to obligate the PFC for longer and longer periods of time. You'll find airports out in our system that are literally unable to obligate their PFCs any further because they're out 20, 30 years or more. And I think that is really probably one of the most important points of why the PFC ought to be looked at in terms of an increase or setting it.
Isn't that a feature of the PFC, that you can actually have a guaranteed revenue stream, or as guaranteed as can be, right? You have this revenue stream that you can go borrow money against, whereas when you're getting grants, you don't know that that's going to be there in 4 years or 5 years. And I'm not sure if it was you, Mr. Krauter, or Mr. Languth, who mentioned that these grants come in tranches and they want to stage things over 4 years or some artificial thing. Was that you, Mr. Krauter?
Yes, it was, Representative Massie. And I think that is just another example that despite the amazing work that this subcommittee did to increase AIP to $4 billion a year, the need is just so significant that you have the FAA coming back and saying, we can't reach that project, even though we know it's a good project. We can't reach it. It's going to take us 4 to 5 years, and even then, we can only fund 60% of that project. And I think that probably is an issue that you would hear from any airport executive that would be providing this testimony to you today.
So when you have to cut it up in stages, it gets more expensive, doesn't it?
It gets more expensive, and it also actually gets less safe. When you can take larger areas out and reconstruct them and not have to break that up in 4 or 5 phases, it's actually safer to do. And so I think there is a safety and efficiency element to this and not just a funding element.
Can you talk about the administrative burdens of applying for AIP grants, and how does that compare to collecting and using PFC funds?
The PFC is, we'll say, streamlined to a certain extent, but as Mr. Languth and I talked about this based on our collective experiences, the streamlining really needs to go to the next level in our opinions, in the sense that FAA tends to try to make everything look like the airport improvement program, and they want to take the same kind of approach to that in terms of getting way down into the details of justification and need. And so it's not uncommon to see an 8 or 9 month process to get a PFC application approved for projects that are very straightforward in terms of their eligibility. And so if we could look at opportunities to streamline, that really would be meaningful to us, and make sure that the FAA does not wander into areas that we believe ought to really be the purview of local decision making. And I think that's where we find ourselves in conflict at times is that we want to really retain, and we think we are the best to retain these types of decisions, but we run into a lot of administrative bureaucracy around justification, need, and concerns inside of the way the FAA interprets the AIP program.
Thank you, Mr. Krauter. My time's expired. I yield back.